and that led to trying to form a story that other people could relate to about the decisions that we make as, particularly as if you're a parent, and how that impacts your family, but also just the journey to discover who we are, and even when we don't have all the answers about where we came from.
We'll talk about this and much more today. Welcome to a Writer's Day podcast. Welcome back, everyone, to a Writer's Day podcast. My name is Ruth Douthit, and I'm an award-winning, multi-published author of books for adults and middle school readers in fiction and nonfiction. So welcome. I'm so glad to have you here today. And if you like what you hear, please be sure you subscribe and follow me, and head over to my website at artbyruth.com, where you will see the cover reveal for my new book coming out in June, Fatal Standoff, and you can read a little bit about the story there and pre-order it. I'm super excited to be releasing that's the book 2 in my Desert Shadows Suspense series, the sequel to Fatal Chapters. So head over to my website to see that beautiful cover and pre-order, and also to learn more about my upcoming projects. And you can sign up for my newsletter, where I give away a book every month, and you can learn more about me, my writing process, and my upcoming projects and podcast interviews over at artbyruth.com today. She is a New York Times best-selling and award-winning author of over 40 books. Wow. Jane Kirkpatrick joins me today. She received a Lifetime Achievement Award from Romantic Times. She has done so much in her books. Well, she has sold over 2 million copies. That's right. What I love about her historical novels is they're based on the lives of actual people, and they have timeless themes running through them, like resilience, overcoming difficult obstacles, paving the way, and faith. And so I'm so excited to have her here with me today to talk about her new book coming up called Across the Crying Sands. So you know the drill. Grab your favorite beverage, a comfortable chair, kick back and relax as we listen to Jane Kirkpatrick talk about her new book. Hi, everyone. Welcome back. I'm so happy to have Jane Kirkpatrick back with me again today. Welcome back, Jane.
Thank you, Ruth. It's really a delight to be back again.
I think this is probably our third podcast interview.
So.
Yeah, we go way back. And today we're going to talk about your new book, Across the Crying Sands. But before that, why don't you tell us what you've been up to so far in 2025?
Well, it's only been a few short months, so
yeah.
The biggest thing has been working on the second book in the series, which I had to turn in March 1st. So that kept me pretty busy writing-wise. And my husband he's going to be 95. He's had a lot of health issues this year. And so I've taken on the full-time role of caregiver to help him. And that's been a new challenge in our lives, but we are hanging in there, and we have good support. And on Monday, we actually will fly back we spend 6 months in California, and then we go back home to Oregon when it warms up back there. And so we fly back on Monday to Oregon with the dog, his first flight. And a good friend of ours is actually flying down to California, Southern California, where we are on Friday, and then she's going to fly back with us just to help with Jerry and with the dog. So that's taken up a great deal of our energy, and we're just glad he's stable right now. He had several hospitalizations this year in 2025, so we're glad that he's stable, and we just pray that the flight will go well. It's just 2 hours, so that's good. Yeah. Good. So that's good.
Oh, I'm so sorry. It's been such a crazy time for you.
Well, I laughed at one point when I was, you know this, that when we submit a manuscript, the publisher would like, 8 or 10 possible titles.
Mm.
And while I was writing this book, one of the titles that came to me was Temporary Terrible Times.
Oh
And I thought,
my.
I thought, it is temporary. And that's what we have to remember,
Mm.
that it does get better, and it's, goes up and down. It's sort of like a wave. And the tide comes in and goes out, and we just have to get used to the rhythms that change as we get older and as there are health issues. So yeah, so it actually, I'm learning from that process, and I think the characters in my books teach me how to get through temporary terrible times too. So
Yes, you're very much well known for that. You're strong, resilient women. And so, has your writing process had to change then since you become a caregiver?
I have to do it. I always wrote in the morning, but I could sometimes write all day, and I can't do that now. So most of the time it's like from 5 until 7 or 8 in the morning, and then the day gets devoted to, Jerry's needs and just everyday paying bills and all that sort of stuff. So
Yeah.
that's a little different. And I do all the cooking now for Jerry. He's probably losing weight because of that, but
Oh no.
um, because he used to
Wow.
be the cook. He was
Oh,
always the
okay.
cook,
Oh,
and
how nice.
he said that it was self-preservation, that it was better that he cooked, because I really am not a very good cook, but I but I have learned, and he's been most tolerant of my cooking. So that's
No.
an adjustment. But yeah, so the rhythm is different, and I'm just spending probably 3 to 4 hours in the process, as opposed to having the luxury of 7 or 8 hours. So,
Sure.
but
Yeah.
but these three books in this series are shorter than my usual novels,
Mm.
and that was one of the reasons that I suggested three shorter, 3 book series, but make them be shorter, because I just knew that I couldn't do the kind of intensive writing that I'd done before,
Hmm.
and meet the deadline. So, and it so far I think it's worked out well. I hope so. I mean, I won't know until readers get the book, but we'll hope.
Yeah, well, that's amazing. It's a beautiful picture of marriage, what marriage is, right? In sickness and
Yeah.
in health. And so you're an inspiration to us all, especially to us writers, because we can easily make excuses and say, oh, I'll write tomorrow, I'll write tomorrow, I'll write the next day. But you are reminding us to get it done every day, even if you have to just sneak it in the early morning hours. You're a writer, you're an author, and you are teaching all of us to remain true to our craft and to overcome those obstacles. So thank you for that.
Well, you're welcome. I have occasionally taught a workshop called Staying in the Room
Mm,
for writers, about things we can do that keep us there when we'd rather, clean the toilets, because we think, oh, well, these are more important things. I have to do something more important. But as you know, there really is, if you've got this call to tell this story, and this story won't let you go, you have to find ways to
mm.
respond to that, and lend your authenticity and integrity to the story. So
That's true. So thank you for that. Well, now let's talk about your new book, Across the Crying Sands. What is this story about?
it's actually about the first female mail carrier on the Oregon coast, which is a very rugged coast. The cover shows an actual it's called Haystack Rock, but there were just some very rugged rocks along the Oregon coast, and the area was isolated for a long time because people just took ships and went past it,
Mm,
and because the roads to this beach were just so horrendous to get through the gnarled trees and the windfalls and the blackberry bushes and so on. So people didn't come there routinely at all. But there were homesteaders, and there were people who were hardy, and so they did have a mail delivery, which is one of the oldest things that, in our government, is that there was a postal service. Ben Franklin was a postmaster. So that's how long we've had a postal system.
Yeah. Hmm.
And Mary was one of the first women. And I was really, this is a brief story, but the story was brought to me 15 years before I decided to listen to it and write it, by a woman who just had loved the story of Mary Goretzky. And she said, "You need to write this book." And I said, "No, no, you need to write it." And because you're obviously the keeper of the story. Well, her name was Susie Witchen, and she kept me in information and research and so on, until finally 3 years ago I thought, well, maybe this is the story I'm supposed to write. And the sort of fascinating thing for me is that as I began to do more research about Mary, is that she became the postmistress when she and her husband had 4 children at home. And so part of my unanswered question, which I always have in my novels as I'm writing, is how did that happen? What drove her to do that when she had children at home and they actually hired a nanny to look after the kids for her to take this role? So it was an interesting and an intriguing story to unfold. Um,
Mm.
so that's, and and it's part of her story. It's part of her parents who had moved from New York, and what she doesn't know is that she was adopted, and her parents have never told her that. And she's, when the book starts, it's 1888, and she's about to get married, and her dad had to sign permission because she wasn't 17, and he signed it he wrote down Minnie Edwards, which was startling to her because she'd always known herself as Mary. And so that's part of the intrigue of the story, and that was actually part of the intrigue of her life. And there are some interesting twists and turns as she discovers who she is, in addition to being a child of God.
Wow. That is quite a story. And I'm so grateful for your friend who kept on you about it.
Yeah, I know.
Right? Oh my
Yes.
goodness. Now, what started first? Did you go through all the research she gave you and then started developing your characters, or was the other way around?
No, it was really Susie was so passionate about this story of Mary, and in general, the story of the development of a very rugged landscape on the Oregon coast, which, if you've ever driven along Highway 101, it's mountains and high rocks and cliffs. So it's absolutely spectacular
Mm.
landscapes over the Pacific Ocean. But it was very dangerous. And so, but my friend, who was actually a fan at the time, she has become a friend, she and her husband. But in fact, in this time process, she she fell in love. She got married. There were all these things that were going on in her life. While she would send me little snippets about Mary, or the area did become a very interesting tourist area, and there were a lot of little cottages built there, and people would come from Portland for the summer on what they called the daddy train.
Mm.
So the dads would come for the weekend and then go back to work in Portland. But they have these little cottages, and they do a cottage tour every year.
Mm.
And so Susie sent us tickets to the cottage tour, and sent us. We actually met one day at the museum and came across a poem that Mary had written about Haystack Rock. So we learned that Mary was a poet, and that was something that we hadn't known and she hadn't known.
Mm.
So in that sort of how it was the details really, and the uncovering of who this person might have been, who Mary was, and that led to trying to form a story that other people could relate to, about the decisions that we make, as particularly as if you're a parent,
Mm.
and how that impacts your family, but also just the journey to discover who we are, and even when we don't have all the answers about where we came from.
That is so incredible. And you're always so good at really, creating these characters these women of strength and resilience, and they come from true life. It's just amazing. We don't know this part of history, and so we're so grateful for you. I mean, whether it's a woman who teaches music to Native Americans in the
Yeah,
Wild
yeah,
West to now we're on the Oregon coast. I mean, doesn't get more opposite than that. So this setting, though, I mean, you're in Oregon, you're from Oregon, right?
yes.
So
I,
that
I
must,
actually,
Mhm.
oh, I grew up in Wisconsin, but I've lived in Oregon now more years than what I ever lived in Wisconsin, my home state. So, yeah, so
So that
I'm
must
an
have been,
Oregonian.
yeah. So then you know how temperamental the coast can be. And so that must have helped you when creating the setting for your story, right?
Well, I hope so, but I also had many people who've lived on the coast. I never lived on the coast.
Sure.
I was much more of the homesteader types in the dry river canyons of the inland area of Oregon. And so I had, I had friends I could call and say, okay, what do you hear when you go outside? They live on the coast. What do you hear when you go outside? Or what does the air feel like? Or what are you trying to grow right now that won't grow because it's so
Hmm.
cold or it's so wet? So I had great help with the details of living on the Oregon coast, but I had certainly driven there and vacationed there and walked the beaches and walked this beach. And interestingly, Cannon Beach, one of the things it's now known for is that there's a very large Christian retreat center there and
Hmm.
has been since the 50s. And I've had the honor of leading some women's retreats for different churches around Oregon and Washington that met there. And so it was sort of like an extra little spurt of goodness to be able to remember, like, oh, yeah, I remember when I walked along the Elk Creek. Oh, yeah, that's what Mary did. Or, oh, yeah, that's what Jewel, her Nehalem friend, did. So I was able to hopefully blend my own experience
Hmm.
and what I had encountered with what Mary and other women who spent their lives on the Oregon coast might have experienced.
Oh, how wonderful. That does add a lot for the reader too, because you're describing it, and so the reader feels like they are right there with you. Oh, that's wonderful.
I
No,
hope they do. I hope the readers really feel like they can get inside the story and find themselves there. I know that the author who wrote Passages to India, he
mm,
said, give me in a story, and you'll have a reader for life."
mm.
And I've always tried to honor that. How can I help a reader step inside this story and find themselves there, even though it's a story about something and someone that lived, more than 100 years ago.
Now, you do tackle some hard topics like losing a baby and grief. What are some of the themes that you want readers to take away from this story, even though there are some pretty tough topics?
I do want people to be able to come away with sort of where these women drew their strength from. There's a poet, an Oregon poet, who talked about the times when we have sorrow in our life, and he described it as being in a cellar of sorrow. His name is Kim Stafford, and he said, it's sort of the mark of our character how we climb up the ladder of out of the cellar of sorrow towards some sort of light, no matter how dim nor strange. And so part of the themes for me were looking at how these different women climbed up out of the ladder of their sorrow because there were great losses. There were deaths. There were miscarriages. There were betrayals, all of which are losses of trust, and finding, navigating our way through that, or what I call climbing the rungs of the ladder. And so I like to explore the different rungs. And of course, for many of them, it is faith. How did their faith support them, or was their faith challenging them? How about the arts? Mary was a poet. Did that comfort her, Or was that something that she used as a way of, making a difference or finding her way through the grief in a different way? There's family. And for most of us, we hope that our family is a support system, but sometimes families drain. And I think that was part of the case for Mary. And friends, how do our friends support us? Or what happens when we feel like we've been betrayed by a friend? So I think those are some of the themes of the trials, but also what are the resources that we all have on hand to be able to help us get up the rungs of the ladder towards that light.
Well said. That is so beautiful. When does this book release?
It releases May 20th.
Well, listeners, Across the Crying Sands. Okay, so it is available for pre-order right now.
Yes, yeah,
And I'm sure they can get a great deal at Baker.
they can. It's 40% off.
Woo!
So
And
that's a good deal. Yeah.
yes, and you also get free shipping. So head over to Baker and pre-order Across the Crying Sands from Jane. And what's coming next for you, Jane?
Well, it's the second book in the series. And so I'm currently working on the final edits of that book. And then have another one to write by the 1st of November. So the
Wow.
second book has been titled, and you're the first to hear it. It's called With the Enduring Tides.
Ooh, how beautiful. I can hardly wait to see the cover design. The,
Me too. I haven't seen the
yeah.
cover design yet. So,
Well, the cover
yeah,
for Across the Crying Sands is absolutely beautiful, just dreamy. So I know
yeah.
readers are going to love it. And how can they get in touch with you? Do you have a newsletter?
I do have a newsletter. It's if you go to my website at jkbooks.com, the newsletter is called Story Sparks. And actually, if you sign up for the newsletter, which is free and it comes into your email, you would also be automatically in the drawing for what I call the seashore sorts of treasures that we're having that will sort of help celebrate the release of the book. So we've got some sea glass earrings and some puffin drinking glasses and a gorgeous print of the beach, and so all kinds of interesting things. And all you have to do is sign up for the newsletter. So I would love that, to have more people be exposed to. In between my novels, I'm writing the newsletter every month, so it's hopefully an encouraging piece of nonfiction for people.
Oh, that's wonderful. Yeah, so head over to what's the website again?
jkbooks.com.
jkbooks.com. Sign up for her newsletter and be sure and pre-order Across the Crying Sands today. Jane, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy day to chat with us about your new book and about your life. It's wonderful to catch up with you again.
It's great to talk to you too. Thank you so much for thinking of me and inviting me to spend a little time with you. Appreciate it.
Oh, that was so wonderful to listen to Jane Kirkpatrick talk about her new book. She does such a wonderful job of really researching and developing these characters based on true characters, young women who faced incredible challenges and paved the way for us, future women. And I just love how she focuses in on their strengths and resilience overcoming such amazing obstacles. So you just can't help but walk away from a conversation with Jane and be encouraged and motivated. And so now it makes me want to go and make sure that my female characters are strong and resilient as well. And I hope that you've been encouraged by Jane's story of her writing process. Even though she herself is going through some difficult personal times, she still makes time to write. So you can too. Going forward on your writing journey, one step at a time, overcoming those obstacles. Because like I always say, someone out there needs to read your story. So keep going. And until next time, thanks for listening. God bless.